Stellar Life, mission log number 264.
I think COVID has been a great catalyst for this awakening where people are going along in their routines and their life is sort of stagnant, right? They're not really making any progress on their spiritual path. And then something happens that completely disrupts their life, disrupts their routine, gives them an opportunity to look at their life and the way that they've been living it, to see what's been conducive to their well-being and the well-being of others and what hasn't been. They're given the opportunity to redesign their life. Sometimes it's forced upon them by a job loss or financial loss, and they have to recalibrate, right? But in that recalibration, they're given the opportunity to redesign their lives in a new and better way if they stay focused on the light and this faith and knowing that everything is divine order, everything is in divine timing, and that they are divine themselves.
Welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. Get inspired and live out loud. From love, freedom, and success to having it all. Here's your host, coach, speaker, and shining star, Orion.
Roger, you're looking good.
Hello, and welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. This is your host, Orion. Today we're going to talk about spiritual stuff like dimensions and angels and manifesting the life that you want to manifest through some spiritual practices and a different point of view. My guest, Suzanne Ross, is an author, podcaster, and internet TV host. She's the author of the Up Trilogy. She released Wake Up, Awakening Through Reflection in 2015, and most recently, Rise Up, Awakening Through Revelation. And now, without further ado, on to the show.
2, 1, 0.
Hey, Susan, and welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Orion. I'm so delighted to be on your show. It's truly an honor.
Thank you. You do so many interesting things. You write books, you do workshops, and you help people with their path of enlightenment. And we're going to talk all about that. And before we dive in, can you share a little bit about yourself and how did you discover your passion and your mission in life?
Thank you for asking. Over 25 years ago, I was working in the corporate world as a very stressed out corporate executive, living on the East Coast, feeling very misplaced on the East Coast and feeling very misaligned with my true calling. And on vacation in the desert of Southern California, I ran to the top of a mountaintop and threw my arms up to the sky and said, I am miserable in the extreme and see no way out. And in that moment, I felt a total sense of calm wash over me. And I heard a voice resonating within me and all around me. And it said, can't you see you've come home? You'll stay here and heal yourself and many others. And in that moment, all of the anxiety and depression melted away and was replaced by excitement and enthusiasm over my new life in the desert as a healer. In a matter of about 2 weeks, I completely transformed my life. I left my life on the East Coast and moved to the desert and started a wellness center. And I never looked back and have been serving in many different ways the spiritual, mental, physical well-being of others. And here in the last decade, it's really taken on a much more spiritual approach. And so now I've become a spiritual counselor. After a missing time experience here in Sedona, my third eye was opened wide and fully activated, and I started to download advanced wisdom, knowledge, and really my psychic abilities came online in a powerful way. And I began then also offering psychic readings and energy healing sessions. Here in Sedona, I offer spiritual journeys out on the land, and it's just all about serving in any way I can the well-being of others, Orion.
Beautiful. So you said the desert is a healer. I always gravitate to the desert. I'm from Israel. And in my early 20s, I lived in a city called Eilat, which is on the border of the Sinai Desert. And I would cross and spend some days in the desert. There is something about the desert that is so freeing and magical.
I feel the desert is truly mystical. And there's been so many ancient texts and scriptures talking about the mysticism of the desert. And thank you for bringing up your origin, because that area seems very mystical, doesn't it? And so much history there, so significant with powerful spiritual experiences.
So you said you take people on different sites around the world. Do you take them to Egypt as well?
Thanks for asking that. My book, Rise Up, 10 Days on the Ascension Path, is a virtual adventure to sacred sites around the world. And so on this virtual adventure, I take people to sites like the pyramid complex at Giza and the Mayan temples in Central and South America. I take them to visit the Dogon tribes in North Africa and even Sedona here where I live. And so the purpose of this ascension adventure is to explore these advanced civilizations, these temple building cultures from the ancient past who were so well versed in mystery schools, who were priests and priestesses. Mayans were the masters of time and priest astronomers, and the Dogon tribes of North Africa were very well versed on quantum physics and superstring theory.
Really? How did you find out about that?
Studying and researching those who had gone to visit these Dogon tribes, these primitive tribes who live in the Bandiarga plains of Africa, who tell those who they invite into their tribe through these wisdom keepers who tell them that they are originally from the star Sirius B, and that their star ancestors come to visit and tell them that the origins of creation all start with this cosmology of the string being the tiniest vibrating particle of the universe and a part of creating it, along with many other details about how creation came into being. And it aligns perfectly with modern scientific discoveries. And so these ancient cultures throughout the world were very advanced in their knowledge and wisdom about creation.
Wow. And so you went and you visited holy sites. What did you get there? What happened to you there?
And so, again, this is a virtual journey. And so I have not.
Oh, you've not
physically
gone. Okay. So, but according to quantum physics, you can pretty much transport yourself there.
Thank you for that. Yes. And I've had many past life readings, and I also perform past life readings for others. I like to call them timeline regressions because, as we know, in truth, there is one eternal now moment where all of these incarnations are really unfolding all at once, simultaneously. And that's why we can tap into them, because they're in truth happening. And so when we learn how to penetrate the interdimensional veils between our many different lifetimes, in different 3D timelines, in different dimensions, higher dimensions. And so I have traveled to Egypt. I've traveled to Egypt on my own, in my own interdimensional journeys, seen myself in the pyramid complexes. I've also had many past life readings from other well-versed psychics who have revealed my past lives in Egypt, in the Mayan temples, and as such have opened to download that advanced knowledge and wisdom from those other lifetimes as well.
I had a session, a past life regression session, and like the places I've been to and the things that I saw were somewhat painful. And there was always the logical mind, the realistic mind, that while I was having that experience, I was also doubting myself. Is this something that I'm making up? Am I really seeing what I'm seeing or feeling what I'm feeling right now?
Right. And it's our mind showing us these images, revealing these different incarnations to us. And I take people into a hypnotic trance state where they reveal to me where they find themselves at a different time and place. And they describe the landscape and who they are and what they're doing and what it feels like to be them in this lifetime and why they feel they're being shown this lifetime, because it always has significance for them in this lifetime.
So how do I know if I'm imagining what I saw or it really happened?
I would say that your subconscious mind is showing you what is really unfolding as another aspect of you in another time and place. I believe that our mind shows us images and gives us the feeling behind it as a way of validating it. In these past life regressions I do, people will feel very passionate about what they're seeing and experiencing, and sometimes be very emotional about it. So I would say that the feeling aspect of it is really what gives it its validity. I find that they're very helpful for people because oftentimes the lifetime that is revealed to them during these past life regressions has a very special significance for them here in this lifetime. Many times it helps them to resolve karmic entanglements that they have with that other lifetime. Oftentimes, by merging with this other soul aspect, they can actually awaken innate gifts and abilities that this other soul aspect has. And so it can be mutually beneficial for these souls to reunite on many levels.
Does it happen that somebody have a negative reaction to past life reading where they take on something from their past life into the present moment?
If an expert reader is guiding the session with their expertise and guidance, and it's always, of course, complemented by the energy work. So in my work, whether it's a remote session or whether it's live, we first do the energy work. And we also call upon Archangel Michael and his legion of angels. We use a protective energetic sphere to ensure that only the highest energies are invited into the session, and it's always only for the highest good of all.
That's pretty cool. One of the things that you do is clearing an energy field. Can you share a bit about what energy fields are and how do you clear them, and can one clear them on their own?
I guide chakra journeys because if there are shadow energies or blockages, typically they are seated on one of the 7 to 12 energy centers. And so we go through and we start with the root chakra and we explore survival consciousness, and we see what comes up for my client when we spin that wheel, and we may be able to identify shadows or blockages there. And then of course we clear, cleanse, and illuminate that wheel to reveal any clearing that needs to take place in that wheel, to then make an intention to intentionally dissolve that shadow energy, remove any blockages so that the Kundalini energy can then flow freely through it. And so we go chakra by chakra. We dissolve any shadow energy. We clear any blockages. We illuminate each of the wheels until the Kundalini energy or the pranic life force energy can flow freely from the root to the crown. And in that way, we cleanse and clear their energy field, clearing their aura, their rainbow body of light.
And if someone has a blockage in one of the energy centers in the body, and the energy, you called it prana energy, that it cannot go through, what happened to them? What are the symptoms in their physical body?
Blockages in the pranic flow will definitely cause physical, mental, emotional stress and distress. And so it is very important to engage in that chakra cleansing journey to identify exactly what is the root cause of the blockages and or shadow energy. And once we can identify the root cause, then we can cleanse and clear it with energy work. We can clear karmic entanglements. We can explore maybe past trauma. And sometimes the trauma is not related to this lifetime. It may be related to other lifetimes. And so the combination of the energy work, the chakra cleansing and clearing, along with the past life regressions, can lead to a very comprehensive clearing, cleansing, healing experience.
What is reuniting your fragmented self? What does that even mean? Are we all fragmented? And what do we do to reunite those fragments?
I believe that we have one true whole self at the center of our creation, and we might call that our eternal soul. But even now in quantum physics and cognitive brain science, they're calling it your conscious agent, this conscious being who is behind all of your incarnations. And I like to call it the eternal soul. This eternal soul is mentally projecting these holographic fractals of itself into this mental construct of space-time. And so I believe that there is an eternal universe, you might call it the central universe, where the eternal souls exist in an existential reality. And just like the creator express their 12 archetypes, the original 12 archetypes, similar to the personalities expressed on the zodiac wheel. Theosophy would say that this eternal soul is projecting 12 aspects of itself in each of 12 dimensions, implicating that we each have 144 soul extensions. And so I believe that to be true. So, for instance, here in the third dimension, you would be expressing all 12 signs of your zodiac wheel, all 12 aspects of your personality in 12 different 3D timelines. And so these would be considered fragmented soul aspects, but the way that holograms work is that even in a holographic fractal, the whole is still expressed. And so you have the ability to tune into these other soul aspects of who you are being in these different timelines and dimensions simply by tuning into your eternal soul and observing through the eyes of your eternal soul all of these different lifetimes that are unfolding all at once.
You said 144 timelines happening at once right now. So there is a timeline where COVID does not exist. How does it work?
Yes, and so many different parallel realities. And this is really being confirmed now in quantum physics. And quantum physicists will say all time is happening all the time. And so when you move beyond time and recognize the fact that all of these parallel realities are coexisting, even in parallel universes, yes, there are many different realities that are all happening all at once in this one universal consciousness. And it's all interconnected through different matrices, through different realities that are unfolding. And so here we are in the 3D matrix, right? But we can project our consciousness into higher dimensional realms through the 4D astral plane, for instance. We can project our mind into higher dimensional planes or higher dimensional matrices. And so there's many different matrices within one universal consciousness. And so, yes, there's many different realities. And so it just depends on where you're looking.
Do you believe our thoughts create our reality? And if so, can we just jump into a different reality and everything around us is going to change?
Well, that's a good question. In a meditative experience, you can certainly visit other timelines of who you are being. Here and now, you are Orion and I am Suzanne. And here we are expressing ourselves in this third dimensional reality with where we are at, who we are being, who we are with, the reality that we have created around us for this lifetime. And so we may expand our consciousness in this lifetime and actually become higher consciousness beings, but we're still observing, perceiving, and existing within this third dimensional reality. As we expand our minds in this lifetime, we may start to see things from a higher perspective. And so we may gradually begin to shift into a higher dimensional perspective and start to see things even from a fifth dimensional perspective. With spiritual practices and an intention to ascend our consciousness, we can do this. And we may, even in this lifetime, actually transform ourselves into a higher dimensional version of ourselves and start to create that reality. We may actually even move out of or expand beyond the third dimensional reality. We may transcend the 3D matrix in that way, but we will still be experiencing the reality that we are creating as an expansion of this one, if that makes sense.
It does and it doesn't. So when we transcend, let's say we transcended into the 5D reality and we have a different perspective, how is that going to affect our bank account, for example? Or how is that going to affect our dealing with our loved ones or world events?
From our higher dimensional perspective, we can start living in a higher way where we are projecting love and light, where we dedicate ourselves to raising the love light frequency of ourselves and others, where we are enhancing the unity consciousness, where maybe we are living in conscious community and we are transcending in that way the fear and the separation of a darker agenda that may be unfolding as a new world order in the third dimension, while we are focused on creating a new earth, a new 5D earth. By the way that we are living and being and interacting and reacting with our reality, we may want to withdraw all of our money out of the central banking system and instead invest in digital coin, for instance, as we create a new earth and move out of what may be a new world order. And so we may make decisions that further transcend the 3D matrix.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I got it now. So we'll just have to step into a place of alignment and higher vibration and bigger consciousness so we can do whatever decisions we need to take in this 3D reality. It doesn't mean that we are going to completely be separated from this 3D reality. It means that we're going to dance with it in the most easiest or most productive way.
Dancing with it is a beautiful way to express that, Orion. And so we keep our ears and eyes wide open to that which is unfolding around us without going into a rabbit hole. So we have to be well aware that where our attention goes, energy flows, right? And so we don't want to dive into the darkness and focus too much of our attention there, because then we help to permeate that. We want to focus on the love and the light, but we also do want to have some level of awareness. So, for instance, if the central banking system collapses, or we foresee that coming, then we can take those action steps necessary to protect ourselves, to protect our freedoms, to protect our finances, and to have the liberation of a sovereignty and a freedom to pursue happiness and prosperity in our own way, protecting our rights and freedoms to do so.
Yeah, so sometimes I have arguments with my husband where I'm like, we need to do this and we need to do that and we need to prepare like this and like that. And he's like, oh, don't even talk about it, because the moment you talk about it, you co-create it. I'm like, I don't know if me talking about it co-creates it, but I know that we need to be ready for whatever comes. So it seems like a very thin line between fear and just being in a state of preparation.
Yes, you said it.
How am I preparing not co-create a darker reality?
What I would say is that there is a movement on planet Earth to create new ways of housing your money, for instance, and people that I know that are part of a liberation movement who are creating new banking opportunities, new communities that are self-sustaining, new digital coins, for instance, where everything is online. And in these sovereign communities that are self-sustaining, creating their own internet, creating their own intranets, growing their own food, so that if something were to happen where the food supply was depleted and or we were required to be vaccinated in order to buy or sell goods, that we have our own unity communities where we have our own goods and services available for one another, so we are not reliant on the central banking system and or general commerce.
Yeah, of course. When you hear those news, when you are, when you go and become a part of those communities, how do you keep your vibration of love and light and healing and all that good stuff? Because you seem to be very strongly grounded in the positive. But I'm sure that even for somebody like you, sometimes it can get fearful. What do you do to...
I try to recognize when I move into fear and stop, regroup.
How do you stop and regroup?
By recognizing that everyone has come here during this 3D duality to serve different roles. And everyone's at a different place on their consciousness journey. And so without putting any blame or resentment on those who may be part of constructing a new world order, for instance.
They already declared it in Australia. In Australia, they declared a new world order. I mean, at least that's something that I read.
Yes, it's interesting. I had a session with a client from Australia who was telling me that they're already using QR codes in their phones as a way to scan when they enter different businesses or what have you. And so it is kind of interesting to see that happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and everything. And now they're like openly talking about microchips and all that. Things that were considered a conspiracy theory just a few months ago are now headlines, and everybody are like, oh, okay, that's all right. Like, I feel like there is a lot of people who are not aware or willing to see those changes.
Again, focusing on alternative ways, right, of living, being outside of that. Like this gentleman who I had as a client from Australia is like packing his bags. There's no way he's going to be part of what may be unfolding there if it threatens his self or his way of life. He does not want to be under the authoritarian rule of a dictatorship, and so he'll go and find another place for him and his family to reside where they can experience freedom and sovereignty and still pursue happiness and prosperity.
Right. I just heard that in France, the people were protesting so much that they canceled their vaccination passport that they want to have. They wanted to have something to do with vaccination passport, and the people were just like, all of them were like, no, you can't force us to do anything. And they all rise up and together in unity. And then they couldn't pass that law. I know that there are humongous demonstrations in London, like 1 million people. I mean, things that are not being broadcast in mainstream media. What are your thoughts about the awakening of people on the planet? Do you see more and more people being awakened, and how do you think it's going to affect the unity and prosperity of the planet?
Excellent question. And so, yes, that's exactly what we need to do, is we need to not engage in the agenda of the New World Order, right? We need to create alternative ways of living and being for ourselves that transcend that. And so I'm very focused on Operation New Earth, which is something that I came up with, this acronym ONE, Operation New Earth.
That's a good acronym.
Oh, you. It came to me at dawn one morning when I always get downloads of different things I'm being called to do and become a leader of. And so this one, Operation New Earth, is on my television network, sci-spy.tv, SCISPI.tv. Which is merging science and spirituality. But this channel, Operation New Earth, there's videos produced by myself and many of my colleagues with ideas for creating the new 5D Earth so that we can transcend this 3D matrix and this new world order. Yes, I do believe more and more people are awakening on the planet, if that's their destiny, if that's where they're at in their consciousness. And so we have to recognize that, yes, some of us are done learning through separation and suffering, and we're ready to ascend into a higher 5D consciousness, while at the same time there's others who may be new arrivals and they haven't mastered the lessons of the 3D reality, and they will go around the wheel again in 3D into dissension and devolution, back into dark ages, to then get on the ascension cycle again, back into a golden age of enlightenment. I really believe in the Hindu tradition of the ages of the yugas, where you have sort of this 25,900 year cycle of 12,700 year ascending arc from dark ages into a golden age of enlightenment, where those who have awakened and ascended have an opportunity to get off the 3D wheel. But those who aren't ready, there's really no judgment about it. It's just that they have not mastered the lessons of 3D, and they still have an opportunity to learn valuable life lessons in this 3D duality. So at that point, they will then go on this descending devolution arc, this 12,700 year descending devolution arc back into dark ages, to have the opportunity to get on the ascension cycle again. And this is the 3D wheel. It's a wheel of an ascending arc and a descending arc. And we see that from history. We know we were once advanced temple building civilizations, and then we seem to go on this dissension devolution arc. into the dark ages where we could barely build a shack in an outhouse. And so this is the cycle of the 3D wheel. And so here we have been catapulted on an accelerated evolution plan into the golden ages. And there is this great shift happening now being facilitated by these supercharged encoded photons coming to us from the great central sun, raising the Schumann resonance and raising the love light frequency of many on the planet if they are open and ready to receive it. And if so, they start living their life consciously and intentionally. Selfless service to others is key. Service to the light. And when you choose to serve the light selflessly, you'll be given many tests along the way to see how dedicated you truly are to serving the light. And if you continue to pass your tests, then the gates of ascension will open for you.
What kind of tests did you experience? For example, what is a test?
Most people I know who have spiritually awakened have gone through dark nights of the soul. And I like to say that the dark night is a great gift when suddenly you're faced with life-changing challenges and people will experience their life around them dissolving in a destructive way. Oftentimes they experience loss of a job, maybe loss of their way of life. And they feel like they're spiraling into a black hole in this dark night. But if they can hang in there and have faith in the light, they will find themselves catapulting out of the dark night into a much brighter light on the other side of the tunnel. And these dark nights often lead to great awakenings.
Why do we have to have dark nights of the soul and have all these pains in order to get awakened? Why can't we just be awakened?
And maybe some are, but it's a way of catapulting you into the light. It's a way of waking people up. And so you just may be going along happy with the way that your life is and not making a major effort to advance yourself, but you may then experience a dark night where you're forced to wake up and awaken into a new higher way of living and being. And I think COVID has been a great catalyst for this awakening, where people are going along in their routines and their life is sort of stagnant, right? They're not really making any progress on their spiritual path. And then something happens that completely disrupts their life, disrupts their routine, gives them an opportunity to look at their life and the way that they've been living it, to see what's been conducive to their well-being and the well-being of others and what hasn't been. They're given the opportunity to redesign their life. Sometimes it's forced upon them by a job loss or financial loss, and they have to recalibrate, right? But in that recalibration, they're given the opportunity to redesign their lives in a new and better way if they stay focused on the light and this faith and knowing that everything is divine order, everything is in divine timing, and that they are divine themselves.
Beautiful. What are your daily rituals to help you keep connected to that higher vibration, to the light?
I wake up and walk outside and do a sun salutation. I thank the sun for arising on another day, and I do an ancient sun mantra honoring the sun, and I really feel like the sun is a divine portal through which divine consciousness flows. And so through our own sun, we can access the great central sun. And in doing so, open to receive downloads of divine blessings of love and light. And I just love honoring the sun in that way. I take a nature walk with my dogs, and while on my walk, I remain very present in this state of awe and wonder about the creation around me. And in doing so, oftentimes I receive downloads of information and intelligence, maybe instructions, maybe epiphanies, ideas, things I'm being called to do, but really just being out there in connection with the natural world, with creation, and just honoring it and knowing I'm an integral part of it.
Nice. I like what you said about being in a state of wonder, because that's how children are. They're always in a state of wonder. They are not predicting something that is going to happen. They don't live in the future or what the future can hold. They stay in the present in a state of wonder, because they're just open to discover what's next and how cool is this and how cool is that. And I feel like the more especially becoming a mom 2 years ago, like I became more responsible, more like a mom. And I am very childlike in nature, but now I feel like I need to be a mom, and I put myself a little bit in a box. And I was talking to my coach, and he was like, stay in a state of wonder and leave outside of the box and find other moms that are not in that box, because you cannot be contained in a box. You have to be in a state of wonder and have fun. And I received that message a few times recently. So it resonates very strongly for me.
Yes, I think Einstein said, never cease to stand like children in awe of the creation. I feel that is such a fundamental truth and a powerful way to stay connected to the creation, to stay in this bliss state of gratitude and appreciation for this precious opportunity called life on this beautiful planet called Mother Earth. And so if we can live in that state of being and do our best to stay in that state of empowered consciousness, then we won't fall victimhood to being in a state of lower consciousness. We stay in that elevated state of gratitude and connection.
Yeah, beautiful. There is one more thing that you do that I have never heard of, and I don't know what it means even. You do dormant DNA strand activation. What is that?
When I do a timeline regression with the intention of connecting my client into a higher dimensional aspect of themselves in 5D, 7D, 9D, I start to reunite them with these higher dimensional expressions of who they're being as a more advanced being who has more DNA strands activated. And so with this soul merge, we then can activate our dormant DNA strands here and now, awakening innate gifts and abilities. So it's really through the soul merge with our higher dimensional selves that we can activate dormant DNA. I often wondered why we only use 10% of our brain and why physicists say we actually only use 4% of our DNA, and they like to call the rest junk.
We do? Only 4%? What?
That is what they say, 4%. And then they call the rest junk. And we know that we have no junk DNA, that we are divine beings. And so I was shown in a download that it's because here in the third dimension, we are only expressing 10% of who we are in wholeness. And so when we're able to reunite with who we are being in the fourth dimension, for instance, we bring on 10% more of our brain. We activate more of our dormant DNA. And by the time we get to the 12th dimension, where the eternal realm is, where we are whole, perfect, and complete, we now have 100% of our brain online and all of our DNA activated. And so this is part of reuniting our fragmented souls, is to merge with these higher dimensional aspects. And as we do, we truly awaken innate gifts of spiritual technology, advanced gifts and abilities.
Wow. So you say that we can affect our DNA.
Absolutely. And I myself am testament to that as I started to merge with these higher dimensional aspects of myself and connect into source. I began to download advanced knowledge and wisdom and awaken gifts of advanced spiritual technologies. And I can only attribute that to this merging with my higher self to start becoming a higher version of myself. And in doing so, these gifts and abilities awaken. And it's nothing I've ever been taught or read about. It's just a natural advancement of my consciousness with intentional practices and connections with my higher dimensional selves, also opening to receive that guidance from spiritual guides, ascended masters, opening the crown, and doing some advanced practices by seating my consciousness within my Merkaba, awakening my higher dimensional chakras. And so using all of this spiritual technology, I have been able to advance myself, transcending the 3D version of myself and expanding into a higher dimensional version in service. It's all directed at being at the highest level of service for others.
Nice. What are your 3 top tips to living a stellar life?
Go out into the world and radiate your love and light every day in every way. Make a commitment to being the highest version of your best self. And so you're witnessing and observing yourself, right? Always saying, today I'm going to do better than I did yesterday. In this next hour, I'm going to do better than I did in the last hour. And so if you find yourself living and being judgmental of yourself or others, you have the opportunity to stop and redirect. In my first book, Wake Up, Awakening Through Reflection, I gave practical guidance for simple practices like the one I call redirect. And so if you find yourself moving into lower consciousness and having thoughts that move into fear or judgment of others, then you have the opportunity to redirect that thought into love or into compassion and kindness. And the more that you do that throughout the day, the more it becomes your natural way of being. Dedicate yourself to selfless service. How may I serve? Ask yourself every day as you move throughout your day, how may I serve? How may I serve the awakening and ascension of humanity? And when you do your spiritual practices, do them with that intention of being of higher service.
Amazing. Beautiful. Where can people find you so our listeners will know how to contact you?
Visit my personal website, SuzanneRossWellness.com. And there you'll have access to my books, my sessions that I offer both online and live, as well as the spiritual journeys I lead here in the sacred vortex sites of Sedona. And also I have many meditations, initiations, and activations you can download.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Suzanne. It was a fascinating conversation and I really enjoyed your company here. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Oh, Ryan, I so appreciate you having me on, and I send you love and many blessings. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you, listeners. Remember to radiate your love and light every day. Make a commitment to be the higher version of yourself. Dedicate yourself to selfless service and have a stellar life. This is Orion. Till next time. Thank you for joining me on my mission to light people up and change lives around the world. I hope today's conversation inspires you to step up, go after the life of your dreams, and be who you want to be. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to go to stellarlifepodcast.com for show notes, transcripts, and other cool stuff. And please subscribe, review, and help spread the word by sharing us on Facebook and Twitter. Have a lovely day, and I'll catch you on the next episode.